The elderly veteran moved cautiously along the back wall of the Navy graduation ceremony, hoping his plain civilian clothes would let him slip in unnoticed. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor as he navigated the sea of proud families and dignitaries, all dressed in their finest. He wanted nothing more than to witness the moment his son, and so many others, would mark a lifetime of dedication. Invisible and silent, he thought his plan was foolproof, blending into the shadows where no one would question him. But from the stage, the group of graduating SEALs spotted him. Their carefully maintained composure shattered instantly. Faces frozen in shock quickly shifted to panic, their disciplined formation breaking apart in an eruption of urgency. Without waiting for orders, the entire class sprang into action, storming toward the back of the auditorium with a unified purpose that stunned the crowd. The ceremony screeched to a halt as hundreds of eyes turned toward the sudden commotion. Gasps and whispers rippled through the audience, unsure if this was a security breach or something far more personal. The once quiet veteran now stood in the center of attention, no longer a shadow but the focus of every gaze. The chaos of the moment was a silent testimony to the man's importance. What the SEALs did next would reveal a powerful truth, that sometimes the most humble, unassuming figures hold the greatest weight in the stories we tell, heroes who walk unnoticed until the world finally recognizes them. Welcome to Echoes of Honor, where we discover that sometimes the people trying hardest to remain invisible are the ones who deserve the brightest spotlight. Before we continue this incredible story about humility, recognition, and the heroes who never seek credit for their greatest accomplishments, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe these stories about honoring those who shaped our warriors deserve to be shared, please hit that subscribe button to join our growing community. Your support helps us shine light on the unsung heroes among us. The Naval Special Warfare Basic Training Graduation Ceremony at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado was proceeding with the precision and dignity that characterized significant military milestones. The auditorium was filled to capacity with family members, military officials, and distinguished guests who had gathered to witness 24 young men officially complete their transformation into Navy SEALs after surviving the most grueling training program in military history. The ceremony's formal atmosphere reflected the magnitude of what was being celebrated, not merely the completion of a training program, but the induction of new members into an elite brotherhood that traced its lineage back to the underwater demolition teams of World War II. Every aspect of the event, from the seating arrangements to the presentation protocols, had been designed to honor both individual achievement and the collective traditions of naval special warfare. On the auditorium stage, the graduating class stood in perfect formation, their dress uniforms representing months of physical and mental testing that had eliminated over 200 other candidates who had begun the program with similar dreams and determination. These 24 survivors represented not only exceptional individual capability but also the continuation of special operations traditions that had been established and refined by previous generations of elite warriors. The audience seating reflected the military community's understanding of hierarchy and protocol, with sections designated for immediate family members, extended relatives, military officials, and other supporters whose presence honored the significance of the graduates' achievement. The arrangement ensured that those with the closest connections to the honorees occupied positions that reflected their importance to the celebration. Among the distinguished guests in the VIP section were senior military officials whose own service commanded respect, veteran SEALs whose presence connected contemporary achievements to historical foundations, and family members whose sacrifices had supported the graduates throughout their challenging journey to this moment of recognition. The ceremony was being conducted under the direction of Captain Robert Martinez, whose responsibility extended beyond simple protocol management to ensuring that the event properly honored both individual accomplishments and the collective traditions that gave meaning to SEAL designation. His oversight reflected the Navy's understanding that graduation ceremonies served important purposes beyond recognizing completion of training requirements. But at the very back of the auditorium, near the entrance doors where shadows provided natural concealment, a figure was attempting to observe the ceremony without drawing attention to his presence. Retired Master Chief Petty Officer Frank Thompson moved with the careful stealth that had once made him legendary among special operations personnel, using skills developed over 3 decades of military service to remain unnoticed among the crowd of official attendees. Frank's civilian clothing helped him blend with the families and supporters who filled the auditorium, but his bearing and the way he moved suggested someone whose relationship to military service went far deeper than family connection or casual support. At 74, his body showed the accumulated effects of years in special operations, but his awareness and tactical thinking remained sharp enough to position himself where he could observe without being observed. What made Frank's presence at the ceremony both significant and complicated was his relationship to the training program being celebrated and his connection to several of the graduating SEALs. As the former senior enlisted advisor for SEAL training operations, Frank had been responsible for developing many of the standards, procedures, and traditions that had shaped the program these young men had just completed. His retirement 3 years earlier had been voluntary but difficult, prompted by health concerns and family obligations that had made continuing active duty impractical despite his desire to remain connected to the training mission that had defined his career. The transition to civilian life had been challenging for someone whose identity had been so closely tied to military service and whose expertise remained valuable to the special operations community. Frank's decision to attend the graduation ceremony had been made quietly and independently, without official invitation or coordination with ceremony planners who might have insisted on providing him with recognition that he preferred to avoid. His approach to significant events had always emphasized substance over ceremony, and his interest in attending was focused on witnessing the achievements of young SEALs rather than receiving acknowledgement for his own contributions to their success. The challenge of attending without drawing attention required the same kind of tactical planning that Frank had once applied to military operations. He had arrived at the base early, before security procedures became focused on managing official attendees, and had used his familiarity with the facility to position himself where he could observe without interfering with official protocols or attracting notice from ceremony organizers. Frank's knowledge of the training program being celebrated was intimate and comprehensive, extending far beyond what any family member or official guest could possess. He had personally developed many of the standards that the graduates had been required to meet, had trained many of the instructors who had evaluated their performance, and had influenced the creation of traditions that were being honored at the ceremony. More significantly, Frank had personal connections to several of the graduating SEALs that went beyond official instructor-student relationships. During his tenure as senior enlisted advisor, he had mentored young operators who were struggling with specific aspects of training, provided guidance to candidates who were considering whether to continue with the program, and influenced decisions about standards and procedures that had affected every member of the graduating class. The irony of Frank's concealment at the back of the auditorium was that his presence at the ceremony was more appropriate and meaningful than that of many official guests who occupied places of honor based on rank or family connection rather than direct contribution to the achievements being celebrated. His choice to remain hidden reflected personal preference rather than any lack of qualification for recognition. As the ceremony progressed through its formal sequence of events, Frank observed with the kind of professional attention that characterized his approach to all aspects of special operations training. His evaluation of the graduates' bearing, their response to military protocol, and their demonstration of the values that defined SEAL culture provided insights that no other observer could match. But Frank's concealment became increasingly difficult to maintain as the ceremony moved toward individual recognition of graduates and presentation of awards for exceptional performance. His position at the back of the auditorium provided good visibility of the proceedings, but it also made him visible to anyone on the stage who might look in his direction. The breakthrough in Frank's concealment came when Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Rodriguez, one of the graduates who had benefited significantly from Frank's mentorship during a critical period of his trainings, caught sight of a familiar figure at the back of the auditorium. The recognition was instantaneous and startling, causing Rodriguez to break his military bearing momentarily as he processed the significance of seeing his former mentor at the ceremony. Rodriguez's reaction was immediately noticed by other graduates who followed his gaze toward the back of the auditorium, creating a ripple of recognition that spread through the graduating class as more SEALs identified the man who had influenced their training and development in ways that families and official guests could never understand. The moment of recognition became a crisis of protocol for the graduating SEALs, who understood simultaneously that their former senior enlisted advisor was attempting to observe their ceremony without recognition while deserving acknowledgement that far exceeded what any other attendee could claim. Their dilemma involved choosing between maintaining military discipline and ensuring that appropriate honor was paid to someone whose contributions had made their success possible. The decision made by the graduating SEAL class was unanimous and immediate, reflecting the kind of instantaneous coordination that had been developed through months of training together under the most challenging conditions. Without consultation or hesitation, All 24 graduates broke formation simultaneously, creating immediate confusion amongst ceremony officials and alarm among family members who wondered what emergency or crisis had prompted such unprecedented action. The sight of an entire SEAL graduating class abandoning their positions on stage and moving toward the back of the auditorium created panic among protocol officers, concern among security personnel, and bewilderment among family members who couldn't understand what had caused such a dramatic disruption to the ceremony proceedings. Captain Martinez, observing the situation from the podium, initially assumed that some kind of security threat or emergency situation required the attention of the graduating SEALs. His first instinct was to halt the ceremony proceedings until the situation could be assessed and appropriate responses implemented. "Gentlemen, return to your positions immediately," Captain Martinez commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to instant obedience from military personnel. But the graduating SEALs continued their movement toward Frank's position, their purpose becoming clearer as they converged on the elderly man who had been attempting to remain unnoticed. Marcus Rodriguez, as the graduate who had first spotted Frank, took the lead in addressing what the SEAL class unanimously considered to be an intolerable situation. "Master Chief Thompson, sir, what are you doing hiding back here?" he called out, his voice carrying clearly across the auditorium and immediately identifying Frank to ceremony officials and family members who had been unaware of his presence. The recognition of Frank's identity created an immediate transformation in the atmosphere of the ceremony. As military officials who knew his reputation and contributions to SEAL training understood why the graduates had responded so dramatically to discovering his presence at the back of the auditorium. Frank's response to being discovered reflected both his discomfort with attention and his understanding that his former students' reaction demonstrated their respect for his contributions to their development. "I just wanted to watch you young men receive the recognition you've earned," he said, his voice carrying the humility that had characterized his approach to service throughout his career. But the graduating SEALs were not satisfied with Frank's explanation or his position at the back of the auditorium. Petty Officer First Class David Shin, speaking for the entire class, addressed Frank with the respect and gratitude that had motivated their unprecedented break from ceremony protocol. "Master Chief, you belong on this stage with us," Chin announced, his words reflecting the unanimous sentiment of graduates who understood that their achievements had been built on foundations that Frank had established through his work in developing training standards and mentoring individual candidates. "We wouldn't be here without everything you taught us." The invitation for Frank to join the graduates on stage represented more than personal courtesy. It was a public acknowledgement of his contributions to their success and recognition of his role in shaping the training program that had prepared them for special operations service. Captain Martinez, now understanding the significance of Frank's presence and the appropriateness of the graduates' response, made a decision that prioritized honoring distinguished service over maintaining rigid ceremony protocol. "Master Chief Thompson, please join us on stage where you belong," he announced, his official endorsement of the graduates' gesture elevating Frank's recognition to the level of ceremony policy rather than personal courtesy. The procession of 24 graduating SEALs escorting Frank Thompson from the back of the auditorium to the ceremony stage created one of the most emotionally powerful moments in naval special warfare history. The image of elite warriors publicly honoring their former senior enlisted advisor demonstrated the kind of respect and gratitude that defined the best traditions of military service. As Frank was brought to the stage, the spontaneous applause that erupted from the audience reflected their understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The recognition of someone whose contributions to military training had shaped the very personnel being honored at the ceremony. The ovation continued as Frank was positioned among the graduates, where his presence validated their achievements while honoring his role in making those achievements possible. Captain Martinez used Frank's unexpected presence as an opportunity to educate the audience about the role that senior enlisted personnel play in developing and maintaining training standards that prepare special operations personnel for their demanding missions. His explanation connected Frank's service to the broader context of military development and the importance of institutional knowledge in maintaining operational effectiveness. Master Chief Thompson spent over 30 years in naval special warfare, including his final assignment as senior enlisted advisor for SEAL training operations, Captain Martinez announced to the audience. The standards these graduates met, the traditions they've inherited, and many of the procedures that prepared them for their future service were developed or refined under his leadership. The recognition provided by Captain Martinez transformed Frank's unofficial attendance into official acknowledgement of his contributions to the ceremony's significance. His presence on stage connected the formal recognition of contemporary achievements to the historical foundations that made such achievements possible. During the remainder of the ceremony, Frank participated in the presentation of awards and recognition that honored individual graduates for exceptional performance. His involvement in these presentations added meaning that went beyond standard military protocol, as evaluations of excellence were witnessed by someone whose own standards had shaped the criteria being applied. The pin presentation ceremony became especially meaningful when several graduates specifically requested that Frank participate in the traditional placement of seal pins on their uniforms. His involvement in this ritual connected his own service to their military development while demonstrating the continuity of values and traditions that characterized special operations culture. After the formal ceremony concluded, Frank spent time with individual graduates and their families, sharing stories from his military experience and providing insights into the history and traditions of naval special warfare that added context to the achievements being celebrated. His interactions revealed both the depth of his knowledge and the personal investment he had made in developing future generations of operators. The family members who met Frank during the post-ceremony reception gained understanding of the institutional knowledge and personal dedication that had contributed to their loved one's success. His presence at the ceremony helped them appreciate the broader context of military service and the importance of mentorship relationships in developing military personnel. The attempt at concealment that had been discovered by the graduating SEALs became a teaching moment about humility and service that influenced everyone present at the ceremony. Frank's preference for remaining unrecognized while supporting others' achievements demonstrated the kind of character that had made him effective in developing training standards and mentoring individual operators. Captain Martinez arranged for Frank to be invited to future SEAL graduation ceremonies in an official capacity. Understanding that his presence provided valuable connections between contemporary achievements and historical foundations that enriched the meaning of such events for all participants. The disruption caused by the graduates' recognition of Frank became part of the permanent legend of naval special warfare training, demonstrating that the most important military values include the courage to challenge protocol when circumstances require appropriate recognition of distinguished service. The back of the auditorium where Frank had attempted to remain hidden became a symbol of the humility that characterized the most effective military leaders, and the importance of ensuring that such leaders receive recognition regardless of their personal preferences for avoiding attention. Frank's unofficial attendance at the ceremony was transformed into official recognition that honored both his individual contributions and the broader importance of institutional knowledge in maintaining military effectiveness. His presence had validated the achievements being celebrated while providing education about the foundations that made such achievements possible. The graduating SEALs who had discovered Frank's presence and insisted on his recognition demonstrated the kind of loyalty and respect for senior personnel that would serve them well throughout their military careers. Their willingness to break protocol had shown that true military bearing includes the courage to ensure that appropriate honor is paid to those whose service deserves recognition. In the weeks following the ceremony, Frank received numerous contacts from graduates, families, and military officials who wanted to express their appreciation for his service and ensure that his knowledge and experience were preserved for future generations. His recognition at the ceremony had connected him to a broader community that valued his contributions. The ceremony that had been disrupted by Frank's discovery became one of the most meaningful graduations in SEAL training history, with his presence serving as a reminder that military excellence is built on foundations of institutional knowledge and personal mentorship that deserve acknowledgement alongside contemporary achievements. Sometimes the most important people at military ceremonies are those who try hardest to remain unnoticed, and the most meaningful recognition occurs when their former students refuse to allow them to hide in the shadows. Frank Thompson had shaped a generation of special operations personnel, but his greatest lesson had been delivered when his former students demonstrated that true military values include ensuring that distinguished service receives appropriate honor. The stealth skills that Frank had once used in military operations had been turned against him by the very personnel he had trained, demonstrating that the most effective teachers sometimes become the subjects of lessons about respect, gratitude, and the importance of honoring those whose contributions make our achievements possible. This story was brought to you by Echoes of Honor. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever known someone who never asked for recognition but deserved more than anyone else? Someone who tried to remain in the background while their students or colleagues ensured they received the honor they deserved. Tell us in the comments about the humble leaders in your life who shaped others while avoiding attention for themselves. and how their example influenced your understanding of true service. And if you think stories like these about recognizing hidden heroes deserve to be shared, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We'll see you in the next one.